guys. Before we begin with week 4 of Young Saints, I just want to look at this verse from Timothy. This is the verse that we have been thinking about and concentrating on over the past 3 weeks, So the verse says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." What that's basically saying is just because you're teenagers doesn't mean anyone needs to look down on you or tell you that how you are living your Christian life is wrong, or, because you're not doing it the way they're doing it doesn't mean that you're not getting it right. What it is saying is, set an example. Don't let anyone have a chance to say that kind of stuff to you. What you're doing is not necessarily wrong. It just might be different to how other people are doing it. It doesn't make you a bad Christian or anything like that. So I really want you to think on this and concentrate on this as we continue on with our last week. Our last week of Young Saints. So here we go. Week number 4, the last one. So this week we're looking at David and Goliath. You probably know the story of David and Goliath, but we're going to look at it a little bit more. We're also going to be looking at Psalm 144 as well as Luke. This week we are concentrating on the fact that you are not too young to slay giants, be it, giant corporations like Coca-Cola, or giants such as bullies in school and that sort of thing. You can do this. Your age does not matter in this. So does anyone remember British Bulldog? I think actually it was sort of banned from schools at one point because it was considered dangerous, which actually I do air quotes, but it was kind of lethal a little bit. So if you don't know what British Bulldog was, one person would be it. And you might play it like in the playground or something like that. And that person would stand in the middle of the playground. And then you would have pretty much the entire school on one end of the playground. And their goal was to get to the other side of the playground without being grabbed by it. Now, often there was enough of you that you would eventually be grabbed. So once that person grabbed someone, then that person might grab another. So eventually you'd have a long line of people waiting to grab you. So there were always sort of like 2 kinds of people in British Bulldog. You had the people who would just leg it, like they would just put their head down and just zoom out and just go for it. And then you had the people who'd sort of hang back a little bit. They were just trying to survive. They would wait, they would try and sort of zigzag between people, and they were just trying to live, basically. And I remember playing this with kids who were much older and much stronger than me. And in those moments, I was literally just trying to survive. I was trying not to be rugby tackled or grabbed or throttled or something like that. It wasn't about winning and more about not being severely injured. That's probably why they banned it, come to think of it. So do you feel like you are just surviving in life? What if God's plan for you was not to survive, but to thrive? What do you think is causing that feeling? And what are some of the reasons why we surrender to survival instead of just victory in our lives? I believe that the scripture that we're going to look at is what it looks like to flourish and experience victory. So let's look at Psalm 144. This is from the Passion Translation. And it says, "Deliver us, then our homes will be happy. Our sons will grow up as strong, sturdy men, and our daughters with graceful beauty, royally fashioned as for a palace." you can flourish in your youth. Let's take a look at that. So we're going to look at Samuel now, Samuel 17, which is the story of David and Goliath. Now, we're just going to quickly summarize this. So the Israelites were at war with the Philistines. They were sort of really, like, they hated each other. They were really strong enemies. And they were basically like, the Israelites were on one hill and the Philistines were on another. And there was like a valley in the middle. And they were ready for battle. Like, they had their battle lines all drawn up. They were all there with their swords and shields and everything like that. And Goliath was a Philistine. The Bible says that he was 10 feet tall, head to toe in bronze armor. We're talking 126 pounds of armor here. He had shin guards. He had like a breastplate. He had the helmet. He had like the, what do you call them, greaves, I think they're called, like the things on his arms. He had everything. He had a spear that was like a fence rail, so we're talking like really thick, and the tip weighed about 15 pounds. So he even had a shield bearer in front of him, and he had a sword, he had a spear, he had shield, and each day for 40 days, he would taunt the Israelites. He'd say things like, I'm going to make roadkill out of you. I'm going to turn you into a tasty morsel for the field mice. He was not a nice guy. So imagine that for 40 days. So enter David. David is the youngest son of Jesse, who had 8 sons, and 3 of his older brothers were in the army fighting for Israel. So this one day, Jesse sort of packs a packed lunch and he sends David to the battle lines, to the front lines, with food for his brothers. And David heard what Goliath was saying, and he's kind of like, wait, are you guys going to let this guy get away with it? Like, who does he think he is? What on earth? Someone needs to beat him up. And David basically told the king, like David, who was like this scrawny sort of 12, 13-year-old, that he'd go fight Goliath, which basically made the entire army laugh at him. But Saul, the king, he was pretty desperate by this point, and he was like, okay, David, if that's what you want to do, I am willing to let you do that. Like, here is your armor. Like, here is my best armor. I'm going to give you my armor so you can go kill this guy, because we just want rid of him. But David refused. He said that he didn't need armor, and instead he went to the little brook in the valley, and he took 5 stones and just put them in his pocket. And, you know, that made people sort of question him. They were like, is this guy nuts? Like, what is he doing? Stones? Surely he needs a shield. And this made Goliath sneer and ridicule David even more than he had done with the army. And he even cursed him. Like, he cursed him by the Philistine gods. So that was pretty nasty. But that is a summary so far of 1 Samuel 17. So let's look at 45 to 51. David answered, you come at me with sword and spear and battle axe, but I come at you in the name of God of the angel armies, the God of Israel's troops, whom you curse and mock. This very day God is handing you over to me. I'm about to kill you, cut off your head, and serve up your body and the bodies of your Philistine buddies to the crows and coyotes. The whole earth will know that there's an extraordinary God in Israel, and everyone gathered here will learn that God doesn't save by means of sword or spear. The battle belongs to God. He's handing you to us on a platter. Big words from David there. So that roused the Philistine, and he started toward David. David took off from the front line, running towards the Philistine. David reached into his pocket for a stone, slung it, and hit the Philistine hard in the forehead, embedding the stone deeply. The Philistine crashed face down in the dirt. That's how David beat the Philistine, with a sling and a stone. He hit him and killed him. No sword for David. So what does this mean for us? We are all experiencing giants in our lives, whether you are struggling with a specific sin or a problematic situation at school or home, whatever you are facing. You are not too young to experience victory. David killed Goliath with a deadly shot from his sling. What he did next was custom in battle at that time, but serves as a strong image for us today. He takes the sword of the enemy and he cuts off his head with it. Gruesome, I know, but that's what they did. Today, know that God's provision is still active for you like it was for David. God will take what the enemy meant for evil and use it as your weapon of deliverance. Whatever you are going through right now, God will not let it destroy you. When you surrender your battle to the Lord, He will use it to show you victory. The bottom line, guys, the one thing that I want you to take away from this week is you are not too young to slay giants, no matter what they are. So I want you to think about this. What are some of the giants that you are facing in your life? Let's have a look at Luke 10. It says, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Jesus speaks a promise for our lives here. He is saying that nothing will harm you. The image of snakes and scorpions is a reference to the enemy and his plans to destroy us. The sin that feels overwhelming cannot defeat you when you are in Jesus. How are you using the authority Jesus has given you to crush the enemy's plans in your life? If we're completely honest, many of us feel powerless against the attacks of the enemy. We don't live in the authority Jesus has given us. You can slay giants and experience victory in your life over sin. You can live like David facing Goliath and fight against the enemy in your life. Ask God for newfound confidence to expose the enemy with authority in your life. When you feel tempted or attacked, speak out loud against the enemy and claim the authority Jesus has given you. You will see the victory. So how do we apply this? Walk in the authority that Jesus has given you. You are strong. You are able to do this. So think about that this week. How can you walk in the authority Jesus has given you? And how can we respond? Tonight, it's time to stop being afraid of the enemy. It's time to claim the authority over sin in our lives. We are no longer slaves to the enemy's plan for us. If you want to experience victory, simply call on Jesus and crush the enemy with confidence. Do you have any prayer requests tonight? Do you have anything that you want to bring to us? Is there anything that me or the other youth leaders can pray for you? Send us your prayer requests. But at the end of your prayer, I want you to say out loud, I can slay giants. I am no longer a slave to fear. I can speak the truth. I am not too young to resist. Here I am, Lord. Send me. If you can't think of prayer, simply use that as your prayer. Give it to God, guys. Give it to God.